In this lesson, we're going to be going over the cycling of matter. This is out of your ecology unit. And a lot of nutrients, that means things that an organism needs to survive, they actually have to be cycled through an ecosystem. So they're not present all of the time. So most of the cycling happens through something that is such a long word called a biogeochemical cycle. So bio meaning living, geo meaning rocks or earth, and chemical meaning basically, obviously, chemicals. So it moves through living things, rocks, and chemical cycles that these different nutrients cycle. So um, there are different processes that cycle matter. So I want to name some of those for you. There's so many. There's the phosphorus cycle, the nitrogen cycle, there's photosynthesis, there can be cell respiration, the carbon cycle, nitrogen fixation, even denitrification. So we'll go over some of those right now. Here's a very happy cow. And the point of the happy cow is one of the living things, and these grasses are another living things that do end up cycling matter. So we'll go through that. So this first one starts off with something that's kind of more familiar and easy to you, which is the water cycle. So the water cycle, you can start anywhere because it's like a cycle. So it's constantly snaking around back to each one of these. But we'll start up here with the clouds with condensation. Condensation, to condense something, means to bring it closer together. And rain or snow or hail or sleet, they can all get condensed until they're heavy enough that they're no longer floating and they turn into what's called a precipitate. That means something that falls to the bottom and come down as precipitation. And so that's again rain, snow, sleet, hail. They precipitate down onto the ground. Now they can run off into the ocean where they eventually will evaporate again and condense. You could have them percolate. That means like fit through the soil down and make groundwater, or and there they'll eventually be absorbed somehow or released, or somebody will have a well, and basically it'll end up back in the atmosphere again. Another way that water gets up into the atmosphere is through transpiration, and transpiration is just losing water through the leaves of plants. I want to show you this cool plant that I found. In the rainforest, one of the dangers of cutting down the rainforest is you figure, well, it would still rain there anyway, so why can't things regrow? Well, a lot of times in the rainforest, it's not. I've been in a lot of rainforests. It's not that it's raining all the time there, but it is very misty and a lot of dew for hours in the mornings and the evenings. And these gigantic leaves that they have here, and even these small leaves, but these larger leaves that you see a lot in the rainforest, each one of these can gather. I've heard estimates in Australia and things that they've measured it. It's about a quarter cup of water a day of dew and mist that it gathers on its thick, waxy leaf, and then it drips it off on this funnel, and it makes about a quarter cup of water per leaf every day. And I've gotten to stand in many rainforests where there's not a chance I could count every leaf there. And if you add up a quarter cup of water, that is really where the majority of water in a rainforest is coming from. And that's the danger of cutting down each tree. You lose water, which seems like a little off, but that's what it is. Okay, so our next one is the carbon and oxygen cycle. So in the carbon and oxygen cycle, basically you have plants, factories, cars, humans, animals that basically use oxygen, and in that process, they respirate and let carbon dioxide go up into the atmosphere. Well, that's okay because we have these amazing things, plants, and we have the ocean that actually use carbon dioxide for their livelihood and to live. So plants will actually gather carbon dioxide and use it to breathe. And there's these amazing there's a sink basically in the ocean where it will absorb carbon dioxide, use it for a ton of different purposes in the ocean, and turn it back into oxygen for us. So it's this great cycle. Now, you maybe noticed that I said that plants do both. There's photosynthesis and respiration. You can see I like that they drew it so much thicker. Plants will use a lot more carbon dioxide to make us oxygen. Such a convenient relationship, right? They take what we don't want and make it back into what we do want, and vice versa. But they do use carbon dioxide to make oxygen. But at night, when they're not in the light and not in the sun, they actually will use some oxygen in respiration and create carbon dioxide. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. Anyways, as they die, this cycle continues. So plants basically convert plants basically use carbon dioxide, and then animals use oxygen, and we exchange it back and forth. Okay, the next one is the nitrogen cycle. In the nitrogen cycle, basically this is the same type of thing. There's nitrogen in the air, but there's mainly just bacteria, but you can have bacteria in the ocean and there's bacteria in the soil that will turn this back into a nitrogen that animals and plants can use. So it will cycle back and forth. So the living parts of the nitrogen cycle are like phytoplankton. You can have, like over here, you can have decomposers. You can have, where's my decomposers? Maybe it doesn't say decomposers. There it is. You can have bacteria. You can have plants, animals. The non-living parts of the nitrogen cycle are soil nitrates. You can have sediment. You can have atmospheric nitrogen that's in the atmosphere. You can have runoff right here. You can have, and like dead organisms can create more nitrogen in the soil. Okay, I want to go to the phosphorus cycle. In the phosphorus cycle, this is similar. You actually have a short part of the phosphorus cycle and you have a long part of the phosphorus cycle. In the short, quick nitrogen or phosphorus cycle, what you can have is you can have basically the soil gets nitrogen in it. That is used by the producers, the plants, and then the consumers go and eat that. And so then it just constantly cycles around. The long form of the phosphorus cycle actually has the phosphorus settle down as precipitate, something that falls. It gets turned into soil and compacted into rock over time, and then eventually that phosphorus is mineable. So that is the long pathway of the phosphorus cycle. So this one, the long pathway, doesn't have very many living parts besides organisms here. Most of it is non-living, whereas in the short term cycle, you have some living and non-living things. You have like the plants and the producers, but you also have some non-living parts like the soil. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to go over with you is that these cycles right now, especially like this one with the carbon dioxide, is pretty stressed. We're basically making more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than the earth can take. The oceans are getting extra acidic. Can you see there's a bicarbonate? So while it absorbs the CO2, it also makes the ocean slightly more acidic. So we want to slow down this process as much as possible, which is what you hear about a lot. All right, take care and have a great day.